I'm going to be live on YouTube. Here we go. All right. So, welcome. My name is Joey. I'm the fire social worker, and I'm here to talk to you guys about financial independence. Um, if you don't know me or you don't know who I am already, then that's okay. I'm a certified financial social worker. My background is I was in the Air Force for 14 years. I paid off $20,000 in debt in 3 years as an E3 on a $1,500 a month salary in the Air Force, and then I kind of became really passionate about personal finance. But um, so I stumbled upon FIRE, which is Financial Independence Retire Early, and that is a kind of a movement that is started by partially by Mr. Money Mustache, and it's kind of a different take on finance. So it's basically more like um, so I'll kind of go over it a little bit, but it's a really interesting concept. It's kind of taking over a little bit in the financial community, but there is a growing interest in it, and there's all kinds of different flavors of it too. So there's lean fire, there's fat fire, there's coast fire, there's all kinds of different flavors of it now. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about the general concept of fire. Um, so the first thing about financial independence, is financial independence. That part of it is important. Um, so, in order to be successful in in your finances, you have to kind of know your why. You have to know, okay, why am I doing this? What does it mean? Do you want to retire early? Instead of 65, would you like to retire at 55? Um, that might be part of your desire or your motivation. Um, Maybe you just want to have flexibility in your schedule, and you want to travel more, something like that, and you just want to be able to not be tied down to a 9 to 5 job anymore. So that could be one of your motivations as well. Um, and basically, you need to kind of tap into that and figure out, okay, what is it that I want? Because you have to have a clearly defined end goal, so that way you can reverse engineer your your plan. So so that's the main. You have to have your end goal in sight, and really identified clearly. So that's one of the things. A lot of people just have this general idea of, like, I want to retire at some point, and they don't have a clear vision. So that's one of the things that I want to highlight for you is having a clear vision on where you want to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, all those things. You need to be focused on that because you need to have an end goal in mind. So when you have that goal in mind, so let's say you wanted to do 10 years, you wanted to be retired. And let's say you're my age, I'm 42. Let's say I wanted to retire by the age of 50. So in 8 years, I want to be retired. Um, so I would have to do the math and figure out, okay, how much money do I need to live off of? And if you do the math, and this is part of the work you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to, like, do crunch the numbers of your budget and figure out, okay, it cost me this much in living expenses, this much in cars, this much in all this. So you need to have that number ready to go. Generally 25 times what that number is in your annual expenses. So if you spend $30,000 a year, then you multiply that by 25, and then you have your number. That's the target goal that you need in order to retire. And that also depends on the timeline. So there's a lot of different factors at play there. Um, but yeah, you want to once you have that number, then you kind of reverse engineer. It's like, okay, so if I need to get to $300,000 saved up in 8 years, then you just do the math. 8 years divided by $300,000, then you would need to save that amount, or close to that amount every year. So it's aggressive, but it also is flexible because it all depends on your timeline. And a lot of times, when in the fire community, you have people that will say they want to retire in 8 years, and then it turns into 12 years. Or maybe that goes the other way around, where it's like you start out with 8, and then you're like, no, I want to retire in 5 years. So then you have to get more aggressive. So that's where this is all kind of a free flowing. It changes back and forth. So just be mindful that that there is no. It's all directed by you, and it depends on what you want, and then you kind of do the math, and then start making the decisions that are going to change, or you need to change in order to get to that endpoint. So that ties into the next part, which is actually creating a budget. You need to have a budget. I mean, it's a four-letter word in some cases, in some people's minds, but ultimately you need to know where your money's coming, or you need to have like a generalized budget. It doesn't have to be super strict. That's one thing that a lot of people think, that you have to track everything down to the penny, and that's just not true. You just need to know, you know track your income and your expenses. So some people don't know truly what their income is, whereas other people, they know how much money they bring in, but they don't know exactly how much money is coming out all the time. And that's part of that kind of the mindfulness of, like, just like tracking your calories whenever you're trying to lose weight. you know you got to burn more calories than you take in. Well, just like with your budget, you're going to have to take in more money than you spend. I mean, that's really what it comes down to a lot of times. But I also want to highlight that it needs to be more intentional and more focused. So the more focused you are, the more accelerated that you're going to be able to do, uh, to meet your goals. All right. So then your savings. So you basically want, the big thing that this is painful for a lot of people is your savings rate. You've probably heard of the expressions, pay yourself first. Well, that's ultimately what this is coming down to, is before you pay all your obligations, you basically put money aside for your future self. And this can be difficult for some people, or for a lot of people sometimes, because you're dealing with your current present situation, but then you're also trying to navigate, like, thinking about the future, and planning for the future. So it's difficult. It's one of those things that it requires constant. It's a constant struggle sometimes. But I think one of the things that people don't see and feel the impacts of is the power of compounding, the compounding effect. Um, So people know about compounding interest with, like, a mortgage and credit cards and things like that, and they definitely feel that. But rarely do people ever see the impacts of positive compounding. So for the first time, when I started investing in, like, dividend stocks, I didn't feel this until I started looking at my annual expenses, or my annual statements, and then I realized, I looked at, like, I put in, like, I don't know, like $1,000 the first time, and then I looked at my end of year statement, and I had made like $200, and I literally didn't do anything for that $200. It was free money to me. And that was my light bulb moment, where it's like, okay, well, this investing thing and this saving thing, it's actually real. It's you have to be able to feel it. And a lot of times people just can't feel that, or they're so worried about their present, expenses, that they can't put money away, or they feel like they can't put money aside. So, it's a process. It takes time, but I just hope that I can encourage people to start putting money away aggressively, because that's where you that's where you start to make progress, and make a positive impact on your finances. And then it becomes a positive snowball, where suddenly you're like throwing all your money at your at your assets and you want to watch them grow. So that's definitely an exciting thing and something that I hope everyone can can feel someday. And hopefully, you guys are feeling that now, and you're excited about it, and you want to you want to feel it some more. So it's definitely, it can be addictive, that's for sure. And it's a nice change of pace coming from looking at your debts grow versus watching your assets grow. So try it out. You might like it actually. All right, so you got you boosted up your savings rate. You're starting to you have like this cushion now, and now a lot of people are like, well, what do I do with that money? How do I invest? I don't know anything about investing, and I'm not gonna pretend like I'm a super investor. I'm not gonna give you any hot stock tips or anything like that. Um, but this is where you're going to have to put some effort into and learn about investing, and because you're going to have to find what is your investing profile, your person, yeah, basically what type of investor are you? Are you a nervous investor? Do you have do you have a are you risk averse? Like, do you feel like you you're basically the anti-gambler, where you're not going to put any money away, because if it goes down $10, then you're like, oh my God, that's this sell, and that's okay. That's okay to have that risk profile, but just know that the reality is, um, you put money in the stock market, you invest it wisely enough, you're going to make money. You just have to put yourself out there, and not everyone is comfortable doing that, mainly because the stock market is so intimidating, and I was intimidated by it when I first started, but as I learned through trial and error, making some mistakes along the way, some expensive mistakes, and some just all kinds of different things, but ultimately I learned the overall message is that you do need to invest in the stock market. um you know it's just going to be a personal decision as far as what it is. How much of the stock market do you want to put in? How aggressive do you want to put it in? What is your timeline? So that's the other part of it that's really kind of nuanced. Is your timeline is important, because how you invest should kind of it should play a part in how aggressively invest is like part of your investing profile. So if you need money in the next 5 years, then you're not going to put it in penny stocks or anything like that. Um, you want something that's going to be more stable, that's not super high risk, maybe, but like you just got to find that sweet spot. But ultimately, it's part of the research, and the research of what you're comfortable with. So just start a you can do like a mock investment profile. There's, I think, Investopedia has one, but basically you put in fake money, you start buying fake stocks, and you start to get the feel for, okay, well, if this were my own real money, this is what it would look like if I bought or sold or hold or whatever. So it's just you gotta dip your toes in the water. You actually have to make the commitment to do that. So just be wary of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm big on index funds. Vanguard is, my comfort. Um, my comfortability is, I would like to have, and for those who don't know what index funds are, they're kind of a collection of multiple different companies. So instead of just buying Apple stock individually, you own a very small sliver of Apple along with all the other major players. So you're essentially getting the full benefit. I guess say full benefit, but you get a larger benefit of multiple companies versus putting all your money into one company. So it spreads out. It's diversification. It's basically spreading out your risk. So that's for me. That's what I like. I did dabble with personal individual stocks for a while, and now I don't do that anymore. I realize that I don't like um, that risk of a company having a bad quarter, and then suddenly that goes down 10%. But that's something that you're going to have to figure out on your own, essentially. But I would say talk to somebody that you trust. um, I also I'm trying to encourage people to just talk more about money with their family and friends and coworkers. I think we need to really um, destigmatize money, um, and talking about money, and sharing your money problems with people, or maybe you have a situation that you're not comfortable with. Like, you might be surprised how much your family and friends would be willing to help you or give you advice, or maybe they've been in a similar situation. So don't be afraid to ask for help, well, especially with your close friends and family. You would be surprised. So that's my little mini soapbox. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Um, so now you're investing. You got your money in the stock market or in real estate, or um, like, there's crypto, bitcoins, things like that. Like, I'm not going to get into that because that's not something that I'm. Once again, my risk profile is that I don't really trust. I don't. I just don't. I don't really have the background information to feel comfortable enough to get into Bitcoin. So, but that is, people are legitimately making money doing that. So, um, to each their own. So, but if you do put your money in crypto, one of the things about any investment is that you better be comfortable losing that money, because it is possible that you could lose your money in the stock market. So that is a harsh reality. So that's why diversification is very important, because you don't have all your eggs in one basket. So you can have some of your money in stocks, some of your money in some bonds, and maybe some CDs or certificates of deposit. So that's kind of where you lock your money up for a certain amount of time, and then they give you a higher interest rate. So CDs are pretty popular now because they're much higher. But the downside is that you can't touch that money for that allotted amount of time. So if you have a year long CD, you might be getting $20 a month, but you can't touch it for that whole year. So that's just one of the risks of putting your money away like that. A lot of people are more comfortable with their money being liquid, and that's okay. It just depends on your situation. Real estate is another one that, it's a tough real estate market right now, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible to break into. Um, you just have to be patient and save up your money, your nest egg, or your down payment money. Do side hustles, whatever you got to do, but you're gonna have to have some money down, and closing costs and all this other stuff. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It just takes time, and it takes consistency and dedication. And I believe that everyone can do it. Uh, it's just one of those things that takes time, and takes it takes discipline, because you have to sacrifice certain wants and certain, maybe even some needs in the short term, to save up that money, and then eventually you'll have that money, and then put it towards the down payment, and then you can potentially lower your monthly housing costs by having a mortgage versus rent. Um, but that gets into a whole conversation about renting versus buying. That's a very heated discussion. Some people love real estate. Some people are been burned by it, and they don't want to deal with, because the reality is houses do require a lot of work and cost a lot of money to maintain. So your your mortgage might be $900 versus $1,300 of rent. That extra $400 is nice, but when the water heater breaks, then you have to pay, $1,000 or so to get it replaced. So that's where that extra savings you're gonna have to put away for the inevitable something happening to your house. So it's not a true dollars and cents comparison, because I know some people are so hyper focused on, I got to get a house because I'm throwing my money away in rent. Like that $1,300 is is not it's not helping. It's not coming back to me. It's just making someone else richer, and that's partially true. But it's a cost benefit analysis. So that's a whole nother conversation. We can do real estate another time, but just know that when it comes to financial independence, a lot of people are using real estate. Just the reality of it. And I mean, I'm hoping to do that someday, and kind of do house hacking, things like that. Like I've done Airbnb in different in a couple different houses that I've owned, and a lot of people are house hacking. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there. You just got to get yourself up to that point to do that. Um, so yeah, so now you're investing. You're kind of on autopilot. The last part is really just kind of staying informed, staying up to date, and then adapting to market trends, things that are happening. So so yeah, like once you kind of get things on a roll, some things are going to be kind of automatic to an extent, um, but you're gonna have to stay on it, and there's gonna be new things. Like 20 years ago, no one knew anything about Bitcoin. It was just not a thing. It literally never existed. So the strategies now are or the strategies then are not the same as the strategies now might be, and so that's where you gotta be. It's part of financial literacy. You have to keep up with it. It's like a muscle, and you have to keep flexing that muscle, and you have to keep working it out and keep learning about the different things about finance. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. So just keep in mind that, uh, yeah, like it's the quick fixes are rarely ever good fixes. So if people are selling you some pie in the sky kind of number of, I don't know, like sales or commissions, or I don't know, like there's all kinds of things that people will sell you because they know that people want that instant gratification. That's what, a lot of what our society is all about now is instant gratification. And that's just usually, it's not going to help you long term. It's the closest equivalent is putting money into the lottery. um yeah, there's going to be that 1 in a million, one in a billion person that wins the lottery, but that's $20 down the drain for most people, for everyone else. So yeah, just keep an eye on your money. Manage mindfulness. That's the big thing that I want to try to project out to the world is being mindful with your money. uh Find a balance, spend on what's important to you. um don't be don't get caught up with social media trends and Pinterest boards that encourage you to spend money are probably not a good influence on you. So maybe change your Pinterest board to be more to be more mindful of where you want your financial future to be. So yeah, that's kind of the bear. That's the financial independence. The retire early community is really interesting. There was actually an article recently, I think it was in the New York Times, um, that was shared by Mr. Money Mustache. They did a whole um, they did like this really exhaustive um, story on the fire community and the fire movement. It was really interesting. Like I said earlier, there's all kinds of different flavors of fire now. Um, lean fire is probably where I fit in the most because like trying to lower my expenses so that way my math problem is easier because I don't need as much money. So lean fire, might mean $400,000 saved up, and you can mathematically retire. So you have your 400,000, and then the money from that basically funds your lifestyle. For some people, it's a million easily, or 2 million, or whatever. Like it's because of their lifestyle is X. They need to to have a higher nest egg, and that's okay. If you can make it to 2 million, then that more power to you. But for most everyday average, Americans, or not even Americans, this is a global movement now. Um, it just you have to basically plot out your path and make the decisions based off of what's important to you. So yeah, and then it's things are going to change, and your life is going to change. Things are going to happen. Uh, things are going to emergencies are going to come up. You're going to get maybe a laid off or pay cut or maybe a raise. So suddenly you're making more money. You're like, well, what do we do in this situation? So um, yeah, then you might be able to retire even sooner because of that. So if you do get raises, I always encourage people to put a little bit of that money away. So if you get like a 10% raise, then maybe you say 5% is automatically you put that money away. The other 5% maybe is now your fun money. Um, so it's just little things like that you still get the benefit of some, a raise, and you get to maybe extend your lifestyle a little bit, but then you're still automatically going to increase your saving and investment rate. So, all right. Well, that is pretty much what I wanted to touch on. Uh, if you're watching this after the stream, you know, by all means, let me know some feedback, some questions that you have, any criticisms, complaints, anything like that. I wanna engage with the community. I want to learn from you guys. I want to, you know, find out what's important to you so I can tailor my message to you more efficiently. So, well, I appreciate you watching, and um, you can hit me up on all the different platforms. The Fire Social Worker on Facebook. I'm setting up Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. There's so many platforms now. It's crazy, and then YouTube, obviously. So, um, yeah, if anything comes up, let me know. I'm gonna try to do these, I guess, on Sundays, just to kind of get the feel for it and get comfortable with it, and um, just spread the word and talk finances. This is something that I'm passionate about. I'll talk till I'm blue in the face about finances, and I hope that this will help encourage people to talk about their finances with their significant others, their family, their friends. Let's normalize talking about finances. All right, that's my challenge to you. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate you um, listening in or watching or however you took this content in. So thank you, and I will see you on the next time. Thank you.